This is the Ned Group Investments Podcast, a space where you can learn more about our fund managers, the funds they manage, as well as getting up-to-date and important developments affecting the investment world and how they might be relevant to you.
The Ned Group Investments International Investment Summit in London with Matthew Syed. Matthew is a journalist, a best-selling author, and an international table tennis player. Matthew, I was fascinated by your story about table tennis and how so many of the top English table tennis players all came from a single street. Can you tell us a bit about that, please?
Oh, yes. So this is in the 1980s, and I grew up in a town called Reading, which is a pretty ordinary town, about 40 to 50 kilometres west of London. And we had this extraordinary number of champions on Silverdale Road. I was a national champion, Commonwealth champion. My brother was a national champion. Karen Witt was a national champion. Andy Wellman and Paul Beck and Keith Hodder, and I could go on. And a lot of people said, oh, there's something in the water, or, you know, there's something incredible. But actually, it was a combination of things. We had a great coach, and we had also the opportunity to practice, because we had a purpose-built club just on the edge of the street, and we had a set of keys. We could play before and after school and weekends. And I think when you get that coalition of factors of great coaching, great mentoring, committed participants, you get some incredible results.
Thanks very much. Your new book, Rebel Ideas, The Power of Diverse Thinking, talks all about the benefits of diversity and specifically cognitive diversity. What would you say are the big takeouts from the book?
I think the key thing is that diversity often is talked about in terms of race and gender and social class. I think cognitive diversity, differences in the way people think and the information they bring to a problem, that's what needs to be optimized. And when you get it right, the power is extraordinary. And I think that's where the future of innovation and success, particularly in complex areas that many corporate institutions are engaged in, that's where it's going to happen.
And do you have any good examples of companies that have perhaps moved from a sort of fixed mindset to a growth mindset and benefited from that diverse thinking?
Yes, so Microsoft's a very good example, where they were having some problems a few years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, and a new CEO came in and was very adamant, Satya Nadella, we need more of a growth mindset, people who don't get defensive, where people point out their weaknesses, who collaborate effectively, who understand that they need to learn about the world around them. And he attributes a very significant recent success of Microsoft to this change in the culture.
And the impact of social media, where it seems it can quite easily become an echo chamber, so almost the opposite of cognitive diversity.
That's a great point, yeah. I mean, that I think is a very significant problem. It has very much been that way in the UK, where you have this very big global network, which ought to open you to new ideas and new information and to give you an opportunity to finesse and improve and strengthen your opinions and judgments on all sorts of different things. But in politics in particular, I think there has been a problem of people descending into echo chambers, which is because they can connect with anyone they like, they tend to connect with people with very similar views, ideological views, often from a similar social background. And that can, I think, be quite problematic.
And just finally, in the area of creativity is, I imagine, an area where diversity can have huge benefits. Is there a specific size of a team or specific types of projects that this kind of diversity benefits most from?
That is a very interesting question. I think it varies a lot according to context. It really depends on the context. You're absolutely right, however. In the creative world, having people who think a bit differently is important because, number one, they come up with different ideas from one another, so it increases the volume of ideas. But also, when you have a number of different ideas, you can often fuse two together, sometimes called the cross-pollination of ideas. So if you think, for example, about the history of luggage in our species, we've had luggage or water skins or things with which we carry other things for a very long time. We've also had wheels for a very long time, but it took until about 1972 to bring wheels and suitcases together to create a useful technology. So I think if you have people with different ideas that you can bring together, That's where you can really propel significant innovation.
And you told a fascinating story of breaking the code in the war and how that benefited from diversity. Could you briefly sort of explain that story?
So they had to crack the Enigma code in the Second World War. Very, very important. And they hired some good mathematicians like Alan Turing, but they also realized they needed some other cognitive skills. And they hired somebody called Stanley Sedgwick, who was a lowly bank clerk, but who was a brilliant crossword solver. And it turns out he added something important, which is he was able to get in the minds of the people inputting into the Enigma machine, because that's what you have to do with the crosswords. You have to, each national newspaper has about 5 crossword setters. Mm-hmm. And the really good crossword solvers know who the crossword setter is from the first 1 or 2 clues. They anticipate what's coming next. And Sedgwick was brilliant at getting into the minds of the Enigma operators.
Thanks very much, Matthew. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it very much.
Ned Group Collective Investments is an authorised collective investment scheme manager in terms of the Collective Investment Schemes Control Act. Ned Group Investments does not provide advice on financial products and will only give you factual information. For further details on our funds and to view our terms and conditions, please visit nedgroupinvestments.co.za.